Welcome to PixelTunes Radio, episode 19. I'm Mike.
I'm Ed.
And this is our Legend of Zelda episode. I am super excited for this.
Yes, we've decided to do Zelda because obviously it's close to the release of Hyrule Warriors, or the Legend of Zelda's
That's
latest.
the new Metroid game, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a Zelda Mario crossover.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
Yeah.
And like Star Fox is in it.
Right, we'll finally get to see what Metroid happens when he runs across a mushroom.
Yeah. Dear God. Okay.
We've just lost all of our listeners.
Yeah, they were just like, these guys again.
So we have a special guest with us today. You might remember him from episode 5, was it?
I think it was
been
2 or 3.
3.
Was it 3?
I think it was 3.
Oh, goodness. All right, so episode 3.
You fail.
Todd's picks. So we have Todd back with us today. The reason we've added Todd today is because I am not, and I've said this before, I'm a very casual Zelda fan. I've played through a few of them, but I don't have a lot of play experience. Todd is a huge Zelda fan. Mike is a huge Zelda fan, so they're going to take care of the color commentary, I guess, and I'll take care of the technical details and history behind the series, which is my passion.
Hey guys, great to be back. Thanks for having me. I understand episode 3 was your highest rated episode, so I decided to grace your presence again.
Oh, thank you. Thank God. You're in need of
Our
some
listenership
Todd.
is going to soar again.
Yeah.
Todd, yes! Sweet! So, Mike, why don't you tell us about your little adventure at Nintendo World?
Yeah. So speaking of Zelda, I went ahead and camped out at the Hyrule Warriors Nintendo World Store launch and was one of the lucky few that was able to get the Hyrule Warriors limited edition.
Yeah, there were only about 300 of them released. That's pretty awesome.
It was crazy just because we got there at like 2 in the morning and I was freaking out the previous day because I called the store ahead of time and was like, so how many people are in line? And they were like, oh, there's like 20 people in line. I'm like, are you kidding? Like there's already 20 people in line.
New Yorkers, man.
And
they're crazy.
So I'm kind of like, all right, well, how many do you guys have? And they were like, oh, we only have like 100. And I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to get it. I was like, nope, just tap out right now. And so the whole day I'm going back and forth, like, should I go? Should I not go? And in the end, I was like, you know what? I should just go just because even if I don't get it, it'll still be an adventure. It'll still be something I can talk about, and it'll still be something I'll enjoy. And so we were in the group of probably, I'd say there were about maybe 30 or 40 people behind us that ended up getting it as well. And it was like biting your fingers like in your nails, just like waiting. And they basically at like 8 o'clock they started going through the line, maybe like 7:38ish, and passing out like what's it called, like things to
wristbands?
Like wristbands, yeah, to go around your wrist. And because you wouldn't put wristbands on like your nose.
Wristbands for your neck.
Yeah, you know. So they start passing out these wristbands, and they get to about like maybe 10 people in front of us, and they were like, oh, we're out of wristbands. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like 10 people, I'm going to miss this by 10 people. And so they're like, the guy starts going through, and he's just like 1, 2, 3, and he's like counting the rest of the people that were in the line. And so there were like 40 people in back of us, plus like the extra 300 people that were in the line.
Wow.
Like there was about 500 people there. So they only had, like 250 or like maybe 300 of these things. And we were, like 220, 210, around that.
So the guys that they were counting were the extra people that
got it. Right. So they were counting it, and they were like, all right, you guys are good. And we were all like, yes! So it was pretty awesome. So
pretty cool.
I was happy to be one of the chosen few.
So if you want to see an unboxing, you can go to Mike's YouTube video.
Channel. Yeah, I did an unboxing. I just posted it actually today. And so when you're listening to this, it'll be 2 weeks later. So go back in the channel and check it out at youtube.com/dongold.
So it came with a cool scarf, right?
Scarf,
Similar to the one that Link wears in the game?
Right, yeah. And actually, it's a really comfy scarf. Like, it would totally be something that I would wear around the house in the wintertime. It would not be something that would leave the house.
Similar to what we did for our other series episode, Contra, we are going to go chronologically, starting from the original Legend of Zelda, and kind of move forward as we go through the podcast up to the present day. So obviously the perfect place to start is the original Legend of Zelda.
Never played it.
Well, let's ask Todd then. Todd.
No, I've played it.
I know, I'm just kidding. So anyways, so let's talk about our first experiences
Yeah.
with Zelda. We'll talk a little bit about the music. Todd, what was your first experience with Zelda?
So, when I first got my NES, a big day, you're coming home with your shiny box that nobody kept, unfortunately. And I got 2 games with it. One was the pack-in, Super Mario Brothers. The other, Legend of Zelda.
Nice.
And, you play Super Mario Brothers for a while, you jump around, you hit some Goombas and all that stuff. And eventually, you open up that golden box and you put it in. And the first song that we're going to play is the opening... Well, I'm doing your job here, but first song we're going to play is the opening song, and it's just iconic. It's that song that has survived through the ages. It exists in some way in Zelda games today, and I just spent hours, days, months playing this game. There was no internet, so there was no, I could just pop on and figure out where I need to go. It was all exploration. It was all figuring stuff out for yourself.
Or buying a guide.
Or buying a guide, but I never did that just because I didn't have any money. But I did have a Nintendo Power subscription, so you get little tips from that, and
True.
Like the classic days of gaming.
Yeah, you go to that. What was it called? Classified information or classified
information.
Yeah, it was
classified information.
Yeah.
They would tell you where to burn the bush or where to bomb the cave to get the
bush.
secret.
I would
stuff.
literally, when I got the, I think it was the blue ring, the one that just cast fire. Or whatever, I would literally go to every single
burn every single thing on the map.
One, just looking, and then go to the next screen, burn, and hours I would spend doing that.
It's crazy how much time we put into this game. So, what was your experience with the game, Mike?
Very similar to Todd. My grandfather bought. Well, my grandfather didn't buy you a system. I'm sorry, Todd.
I had to buy it myself. So,
No, I was first grade. If I recall. I think it was first grade, and I got, I think it was my birthday, my grandfather got me a Nintendo, and it was all over from there. And so, started playing Mario, because that was the pack-in, just like you said, and it was awesome. Loved it. It was great. The other 2 games that I got were Metroid and Zelda. And Metroid was very much more of an exploration type game, very similar to Zelda. Zelda was just one of those games where you plant yourself down on the couch and you just start playing it and you just become immersed. Very similar to Metroid. So those 2 series are both 2 of my favorites of Nintendo. And so for Zelda, I just remember sitting at that title screen and just letting it loop and listening to the music while reading the story and becoming immersed, because you would never seen anything like that before. I mean, you boot it up and you're watching and you're looking, and it's just funny because last episode we had those guys on who were way younger than us, the guys from the Player's Score. They're talking about Pokemon and how they became immersed in that. It was just, for us, I think, you didn't have anything to compare it with. There was no, maybe books or something like that, or television, but it was just so immersive, and you're like, this is so epic. This is just so crazy and unbelievable and unreal. And so going through the game, just getting better and better at it and spending time sinking hours upon hours into trying to figure out where to go. And then they gave you the map, so you would unravel the map. It was just awesome. And one other thing I wanted to mention is I recently picked up the box for this game. So I have a loose copy that's all screwed up. It's just kind of a placeholder for when I actually get a cheap loose copy of the original Zelda. And so I recently picked up a box and it's in really good shape for $10, which is a phenomenal deal for that game. I had a bunch of manuals from when I was a kid, and I ended up finding my original Zelda manual. And I was going through it the other day when I was putting it into this box that I just picked up. And it's so funny because when I was a kid, the whole manual, I would never get rid of it because it's from my childhood. But I was such a stupid kid. I had all the enemies were all either checkmarked if I encountered them or X'd off if I couldn't beat them. So the Dark Nuts, the big blue knights, I had a big X, and I was oh, those jerks. I remember my experience with the Dark Nuts. It was just really cool to flip through that manual and see my childhood kind of rolling back into my head. So that's my childhood in a nutshell, Zelda.
Jeez.
Yeah. What about you, Ed?
Zelda wasn't a big part of my childhood. Honestly, I'm not a fantasy fan.
Get out.
Yeah, I know.
Just kidding.
I'm gonna get the looks of daggers from all the listeners here, but
they're just staring into the monitor.
I can feel them right now, actually. I was always a sci-fi guy. I liked espionage and high tech, and so Zelda never really appealed to me, visually or storyline wise. I believe I rented the game maybe the actual first Zelda game I ever played was Zelda 2,
Oh, okay.
The Adventure of Link. So I was expecting kind of something similar, I guess, when I played the original Zelda.
You went backwards.
Yeah, which was weird because I was huge into the NES, and I got it fairly early on. And it was just one of those games that just kind of passed me over, I guess. And when I did play it, I enjoyed it, and I went through it, and I think I needed the guide to get through it. But, you know, I kind of played through it and beat it, and I was like, okay, that's a cool game. And I just never really thought too much about it. So I've never had that real nostalgic connection with the series. There were a couple other games that have come later that I felt a bigger connection with, but we'll go into that later on in the podcast.
Yeah,
So.
and we'll talk about the theme as far as the composer Koji Kondo, who is of course famous.
Yeah, we've discussed
worldwide.
him in the past.
Yeah, we talked about him in the past. We'll talk a little bit more about him in the future. But
He's got such a huge connection to the series.
Absolutely. And you're going to hear other tracks that are Koji Kondo composed. So this is the title track for The Legend of Zelda, the very first game. welcome back. That was from Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. That was the Palace song.
Otherwise known as Ed's first Zelda.
Ed's first Zelda.
Yeah. Which was good.
So tell us your thoughts on this before we talk about the composer.
Well, I love this soundtrack. This was, like I said, it's my first Zelda, so kind of like Castlevania 2 was my first Castlevania, Mega Man 2 was my first Mega Man. It becomes that iconic, these are the melodies that I think of when I think of Zelda. So even though this wasn't composed by Koji Kondo, who did most of the other Zelda songs, Akito Nakatsuka did a really, really good job with this soundtrack. But you know, it was a side-scrolling game for the most part, unless those little parts where you go into those little dungeon areas. And I really enjoyed it. I thought the physics were cool. I thought the ability to go into towns and talk to townspeople was pretty cool. I wasn't really an RPG guy. I never was. This one had much more of a platforming adventure kind of feel to it. So this was my jam back in the day.
Yeah, Zelda 2 I skipped over, actually. I mean, I went back years later and played it, like, you know, I was in high school and I was getting into emulators and ROMs and stuff like that. I know it's a dirty word, ooh, ROMs, but...
Nothing dirty about it.
Yeah, and so Zelda 2, I kind of skipped over for Zelda Link to the Past, and I don't even know why. It wasn't like one of those things, like I would read Nintendo Power all the time, people would talk about Zelda 2, and I was like, it's cool, I'm still trying to beat Zelda 1.
Yeah, it seems like every series has their black sheep. And this is kind of the black sheep of the series.
And I was okay with black sheeps. I mean, I'm a huge Castlevania 2 fan, so black sheep. So I was okay with Zelda 2. Like, I like the game now, and it definitely is underrated, I think.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I just think people compare it with Zelda 1 too much, and they think it should be like the same. Like, it should be like...
Right, well that's because a lot of the sequels followed that same
top-down
formula. You know, like Link to the Past, which we're going into next, will definitely harken much more back to the original Legend of Zelda than... And really, no games since have really followed that formula that Zelda 2 has. Well, what do you think of the game, Todd?
I know this game has a cult following, but I'm just not a member of it. Similar to Mike, I sort of skipped over it when it was originally out. In fact, I didn't even know it was out when it was first released to the market. And I played it. I think I rented it from Blockbuster, if anybody's old enough to remember that.
Oh yeah.
And played it. But it was different enough from the first one where, for how old I was, maybe 10 at the time, it just didn't grasp me. So I didn't really put a lot of time into it. I've tried to play it more recently. It just doesn't have that nostalgic value that I would need to really put that kind of time into it. It's still, I don't know if black sheep is the word, but it's still different enough where it doesn't feel like a Zelda to me. And I know that's going to piss off, the people who are part of that cult following.
That's the general feeling that, a lot of people do have, that it's just doesn't follow that formula, so it doesn't hold that appeal.
Yeah, I was just never able to get into it, but the soundtrack is great.
I mean, I like top-down Zelda. That's my preferred choice. But, playing Ocarina and playing Majora's Mask and all the other games that I played, Zelda 2 wasn't far off from that. So I kind of felt like Zelda 2 was more of a move into those later Zelda games. I would actually say Zelda 1 was more difficult than Zelda 2 in the sense that you didn't know where you were going.
Yeah, it was more arduous and tasking than it was.
And Zelda 2 felt a little bit more linear, I would say, than Zelda 1, just because you were planted and in Zelda 1 you're just planted down and you're just like, where do I go? What do I do? Oh, there's a room. Let me go get a sword, And Zelda 2 is more like, I got a sword, I'm good to go. Okay, well, let me just, okay, I can't go here. There's a rock blocking my way, and I can't go there. There's another
You're not directly
rock.
Led from one place to the other, but it's implied where you should be going. If you knew anything about rudimentary game design, it does really guide you to the place that you need to be.
Yeah.
Unlike Zelda, where it's like, here's a big map.
Yeah.
Burn a bush somewhere, needle in a haystack style to figure out where you need to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Zelda 2. So as far as the composer, Akito Nakatsuka. I'm so bad with names.
You are Akito Nakatsuka. Nakatsuka.
Yes.
Nakatsuka.
Talk to us about. Talk to us about that composer.
He started off in 1984 with Devil World, which was I think a Famicom-only release. He actually collaborated with Koji Kondo on his first. So I think that's why his music has a lot of his influence, because they did work together very early on. Americans first got their taste of his music when Clu Clu Land came out in '84, followed by Excitebike, Ice Climber, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, so he did work on a lot of iconic original NES games. So most people who've heard Zelda 2 have also heard a lot of his other music. As he went on, he continued with Nintendo in 91. He did the soundtrack for NES Open Tournament Golf. He did Pilot Wing 64 in 1996. He worked as a coordinator on Mario Bros. Deluxe. And then his last game that he was a composer for was Brain Age for the DS in 2005. And then he worked mainly as sound support and a sound advisor. And he's actually is working on Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS and the Wii U today. Right. So this guy's been with Nintendo since the very beginning of their video game business.
True.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the next game we're going to move into is my personal favorite. This is Zelda: Link to the Past. I love this game. I love everything about it. This is the first game I ever pre-ordered.
Certainly the definitive top-down Zelda game. I mean, people might argue that the original NES one is. This is really the one where I think they got the formula down, and that formula was really followed for titles to come.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is about the formula, I think things really changed in between Link to the Past and like the later games, because I think they kept it simple and moved development for top-down games to portable systems, and they've kind of kept that tradition in most cases. I mean, even the later games like Minish Cap and all those are all top-down. There's no like 3D Zelda-ish type game, other than like, you know, ports of Ocarina of Time for the 3DS and things like that.
Right, but as far as the gameplay goes, even though the new ones are 3D, there's still towns that you visit in between. You still gain an item in the last dungeon that you need to use to get through the dungeon, you know, before that. And you get halfway through the dungeon, get a new item, and then use the item for the rest of the dungeon. I mean, that's where this game kind of pioneered that. So even the future console games were 3D, you know, polygonal titles, they still really followed that same method that Link to the Past does.
Yeah, story-wise too, they kind of followed something very similar as far as like the patterns go. So like you would play like 3 or 4 or 5 intro levels or dungeons, I guess you could say, and then you would get the Master Sword, and then you would go and basically go through the rest of the game where stuff got really serious.
Oh, that Master Sword.
Oh yeah. And the Master Sword was like one of this like, I mean, in the first game you had the Master Sword, but it was kind of like, it was well hidden, and if you did get it, you were just kind of like, oh cool, there's another sword. It has no meaning or specialty, or, you know, it just wasn't important. But I think when they introduced the Master Sword in the third game, it was like this like icon. It was like this, you know, behemoth of, oh my god, I need to get this. It was like so epic. And when you finally did get it, you felt so powerful. Like you went to the castle and, you know, you go to save Zelda and you go cut down this barrier that you couldn't get past, and you're like, yes, I got the power.
So Todd, this one is called Dark World, or Dark Golden Land as it's called on the OST. Why did you pick this one?
For me, this is the best track in the game. I mean, the game is just full of great music, but, you know, when I bought this game, I brought it home, and it has that similar sort of memory as the original Legend of Zelda, but it's more colorful. The graphics are a little bit better. There's great SNES graphics. When you finally make it to the Dark World, and it's got this great soundtrack, and you just wander the world again, but sort of in this bleak.
Such an awesome concept, that Dark World.
It was just amazing. It blew me away, and it's always stuck with me.
What I liked about it is that even though the Dark World was very kind of bleak and negative, this music is so like pump you up, like heroic sounding. It makes you feel like, even though I'm surrounded by darkness, you know, this music is really making me feel like I could beat this.
You know what's interesting about this song though? When you listen to the overworld theme, like the regular light world overworld theme, you're just like, yep, it's Zelda. You know, and they're like, dun, 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 okay, all right, you know, whatever. Let me just get into another room so I can not hear this song over and over and over again. When you hear the Dark World song, like, I could listen to that song over and over and over again. Like, this song is just, it just builds you up a lot better than I think the main Hyrule overworld theme.
It's kind of a reward for getting that far in the game.
Yeah, like you just felt things, like stuff went down, man. Like, this is serious. You're in the Dark World now. And I just remember like getting to the Dark World and being on the top of the pyramid, and what's his name? Sahasharella. I can never say his name.
Nobody could.
Nobody could. I always called like Sasharella. That was what I called him. I don't even know. It's like the worst pronunciation of the name, but I always call him. When I was a kid, I was like
Zahashrala, I think is how you pronounce it.
Zahashrala. He's Sasharella. So, he's talking to you and he's like, Link, this is what happened. Like, you gotta, save all the 7 maidens. And as soon as you step off the pyramid, the very first step, you're just like, now it's time. Now it's getting serious.
It's like the entire game up to that point was just sort of like a preamble to the game.
Yeah,
now you're actually playing.
I can only imagine like Link's like 7 maidens, huh?
Yeah.
All right, I got some motivation here. All right.
So what's up,
I got
girl?
my master sword.
He rescues like the first one. He's just like, so what's up, girl? Hey, how
What's
you
going
doing?
on, bro?
How you doing? How you been?
Not you? Alright, so I'll just move on to the next one.
Yeah, listen, and she's just like, yeah, thank you for rescuing me. The other 7 maidens are in the blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, that's cool, but what are you doing later? You want to go get some pizza or something? Some Hyrulean pizza?
Do they have pizza?
Hyrulean pizza.
I hope they have Hyrulean pizza.
Man. I wonder how mozzarella made with Lon milk tastes. That would be
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So this song's also by Koji Kondo,
Yep.
who's done work on everything. I mean, we've talked about him before in the past. He worked on pretty much most of the Legend of Zelda series, for the most part. Worked on all the Mario games. He worked he's done everything. Come on, you should know Koji Kondo. If you're listening to this podcast, you don't know Koji Kondo, I don't know what to tell you.
So, without further ado, I say we get into A Link to the Past. This is Dark Golden Land from Koji Kondo.
Are you tired of missing your alarm clock? Tired of being late to work? Do you need a constant reminder to pay attention?
Hey, listen!
Gah! What are you doing in my bed? Who are you?
You're late for work.
Oh, not again. Wait, how do you know when I go to work? Why are you here?
Did you not get the letter I sent you? We were going to be filming a commercial. We would be entering your room last night, hiding under your bed, waiting until you overslept so we could tell you about Hey Listen.
Hey, listen?
Yes! Hey Listen. It's a brand new invention from the makers of Words Be Here. Just set the time on this special alarm clock for when you want to wake up. Then push a tiny pellet of fairy food, magical magicness, and then voila, you'll wake up on time, guaranteed.
That sounds pretty good, but what exactly is inside this special alarm clock? Ow! Why did you slap me?
Never break open or fiddle with the alarm clock, as you can cause permanent escape, loss of your totally non-captured special fairy that is not a prisoner at all and absolutely can leave at any time.
Alright. None of this is making any sense. Listen, I've got to get to work. Thanks. Hey, listen? I guess?
You guess right! Warning, non-lethal fairy inside may murder first person it sees upon dismantling alarm clock. Please feed the clock and don't ask questions. This has been brought to you by Ganondorf Holdings Incorporated and in no way involves slave labor. Now available at all Lon Lon ranches and Terminus shops worldwide. Ask a mentally challenged sales clerk for details. Void in Hyrule.
What a groovy little tune.
I like that song.
That was The Mysterious Woods from Link's Awakening for the Game Boy. The first portable Legend of Zelda game.
Yeah, this was Link's first portable experience, and I thought it was very well done. I actually didn't pick this one up until the re-release on the Game Boy Color.
Oh, the DX version?
The DX version, yeah.
See, I never played that one. I played the original when it came out, but I played it, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, I played it on the Super Game Boy. So, for me, it wasn't even a portable title. It was just something that I played in my living room. So.
Well, you're not really a handheld guy anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So most of the Game Boy games that I've completed have all been via a TV adapter. Did you play this one, Todd?
I did. Purchased it for my Game Boy. Tried to find the right light to actually play it. I liked this game not quite as much as its Super Nintendo counterpart, but it was good. Now, a lot of the puzzles that it made you go through were just very obscure. It didn't really give you any hints on where to get the item to bring back to the person or the alligator or whoever to get through or to get an item or something like that. So I found myself lost a lot, and by that time I didn't quite have the same passion or patience or other P word that I had with the original Legend of Zelda, and I could just sit there and just wander around for hours and hours and hours. And also, I only had a limited number of batteries, so...
True. Mm-hmm. Yes, that thing did eat batteries after a while.
4 AA's, and it didn't last that long. Only, 4 or 6 hours?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Got expensive.
That's why I gotta get a Super Game Boy.
That's right.
Well, I have those batteries. Yeah, also the fact that it didn't take place in Hyrule. The Link kind of wakes up on this shore of this island. So you didn't have that familiarity with kind of like there's always Lost Woods and there's always these temples. You know, it was kind of a different environment to walk around in. And you didn't know who you were at first either when you woke up in the game. I think he had a little case of amnesia. So it's very different from the previous iterations of the game.
I always thought that the art, because of the art style being so similar to Link to the Past, I always thought that it was a direct sequel, because back then there was no timeline. Mm-hmm. You know, this new book that came out, the Hyrule Historia, has the full timeline when every game took place. I don't even care about the timeline, honestly. I'm just kind of like, it's a Zelda game. I'm just going to play it. I don't really care where it fits in. I don't get that hyped up and bunched up about it.
I never got that much into the lore either.
Yeah.
It's...
Just a fun
There's a lot
game.
of internet debate about what game should go when, and even now that the official timeline is out, the debate continues, from what I understand. But yeah, I don't care. I just want to play the games.
Yeah,
I don't
basically.
care where in the timeline of the entire series it falls.
And this is a really funny game too. Like, I remember the scenes where you would rescue the Chain Chomp from whose name was like Bow Wow.
Yeah.
There was this one scene, I'll never forget it, when you're walking around town and you're talking to the townspeople, and you don't get this as much from the newer Zelda games, because I think they're more written to be, I don't know, just weird. Like, most of the townspeople are just weird. But these townspeople were really funny. So Link goes up to this random kid, and the kid gives him some stupid tip, like, you know, you can press A to jump when you get the rock feather or something like this. And then he's just like, but what do I know? I'm just a kid!
Yeah.
Like, I miss that in the Zelda series. This was the first game that really kind of brought a comedic approach, and I wish that the series kind of continued that.
Yeah, the localization team around that point, like from Link to the Past up until probably Wind Waker or so, had like a kind of a quirky sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably around Earthbound where they realized that that kind of humor really ends up being successful in helping people play through the game, that humor kind of extended into other games of that style. Link's Awakening was composed by Minako Hamano and Kozue Ishikawa, and the sound supervisor was Kazumi Totaka. And Totaka's got a very particular groove to his music. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying this because it's any official...
Hasn't been documented.
Yeah, it hasn't been documented officially anywhere on the internet. But I really think that Totaka had a big hand in creating this Mysterious Woods song that we just played, because it sounds like a lot of his stuff that you'd find in like Luigi's Mansion, the Nintendo Power Flash Cart from the GBA episode that we did a few episodes ago. It just sounds a lot like something that he would compose. So that's my theory that I'm putting out here. You know, Totaka, if you're listening to this, if you'd like to chime in and let us know if you composed this song. That's probably reaching, though. But, you know, the main composer is Kozue Ishikawa. She worked on Star Fox 2, which never ended up getting released, but is available pretty widely around the internet in beta form. And that had a very long and very cinematic soundtrack, which was really good. She went on to work on Wario Land 2 and Wario Land 3. And then Minako Hamano actually did Super Metroid, and then she went on to do Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. She worked on Mario Kart Super Circuit, Metroid Fusion, a lot of the Metroid games.
Yeah, big time composer. Metroid Zero Mission, probably the newer Metroid games as well. I think.
And then she also worked with Akito Nakatsuka on Brain Age, so they kind of got back together again, and that's a little bit of a full circle deal.
Yeah, and then worked on Donkey Kong Country Returns as well, composed that.
Yep.
So.
And Smash Brothers Brawl.
Yeah.
Everybody works on Smash Brothers Brawl.
Of course.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that game.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're moving into a game that I don't have too much experience with. I think I've played probably the first 25% of this one. This is Ocarina of Time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you guys discuss the plot points, etc., because...
Yeah, this was more of a return to form for the series. I mean, coming back off of Link's Awakening, and when you're playing Ocarina, it's more of like a... Zelda is not really kidnapped, more like a prisoner in her own castle, and Ganon's kind of running the show behind the scenes.
House arrest.
Yeah, basically. I mean, you know, it's more of like a... I don't know, like a puppet thing, where like the king is not really in charge, and Ganon's pretty much like calling all the shots. Very similar to Link to the Past, where the wizard Aghanim? I don't know.
Aghanim.
I don't know. I never... Like I said, the pronunciations on those characters, man, are just awful.
You're just dyslexic.
Yeah.
We'll get over it.
Ocarina of Time came out in 1998, and the series really, I think, got a lot of its fan base from this game.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think beforehand the Zelda games were more like, I don't know, they weren't particularly... for everyone. I know a lot of people played the first one, but then they kind of shoveled the series under the rug, and I think this brought it back up for a newer generation. And so most of the kids that are like in their 20s now, early 20s, those are the people who are like, Ocarina is like the best, and I'm like, Link to the Past. So, but I did play Ocarina when it came out. This was actually the game that sold the 64 for me. So my parents, it was like 96-ish, and I was following the N64, and I was super hyped about it, and I was like, I'm going to get one, probably. But my parents were like, you can get a computer, or you can get an N64. So I ended up picking the computer, just because I could do so much more with it, and I started playing Doom and all that type of stuff. But I did get the N64. I got the one with the Toys R Us electric green controller, which I still have.
We were using it last night.
We played it last night when I was playing some WWF Attitude and some
Gauntlet Legends.
Gauntlet Legends, yes. So yeah, I still have that controller. It's crazy. But I got that, and I got Ocarina of Time, and it was just, I mean, that was one of those games when I play games, for the most part, I usually just open it, start playing it, and then I'm like, all right, it works. And then I put it away, and I don't play it for a really long time. Ocarina was the first game in a long time, probably since Link to the Past, honestly, where I was like, I need to beat this game. And it took me a very short time to beat it. It usually takes me a couple of months to beat a game, just because I'm always so busy. This took a month. I beat it in a month. It was like, just done and done.
It's pretty engrossing.
Yeah. What about you, Todd?
Well, first a note about the N64. I purchased N64 release week, and I say that because my parents didn't buy it for me or anything. I had to save up my allowance, save up my birthday money, the whole thing. And I pre-ordered it, and EB Games at the time did this big thing where, like, you got a numbered system with a numbered certificate, which I still have and all this.
Nice.
But I only had enough money to buy the system, and that's when they stopped doing pack-ins.
Yeah,
so
and that's when the cartridges were really expensive.
Cartridges,
for this too.
yeah, that's when they started doing
70,
60
$80
bucks, and some of them as high as 70, 80, right? So I didn't have enough money to buy a game. I bought the system, I brought it home, I plugged it in, but I had nothing to play. And I'm seriously, for like a month, I'm just staring at this thing going, man, I just want to play something, just like anything.
Yeah.
And I had nothing to play on it. That was simultaneously the best and worst gaming experience I think I've ever had.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But moving on to the game, this is the last game that I can remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, where there was such a big turnout to purchase it that there was an actual shortage of the game, like where pre-orders were actually important.
Yeah.
Where
you
if
needed to pre-order
the
this,
game,
or
there was a solid chance you weren't going to get it.
Link to the Past was the same. I remember them.
Link to the Past, yeah, but that was when popular games came out, and they either didn't or couldn't manufacture enough cartridges to satisfy the demand, and you might not get the game for a while if you didn't pre-order soon enough in advance or whatever. I pre-ordered, but not soon enough in advance to get it immediately, and I was pissed I didn't get one of the gold cartridges.
Well, this game was hyped. I mean, hyped.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they had like movie trailers in the movies for this game.
Yep.
And so I remember seeing some movie right before that game came out, and I saw a Zelda, and I was like, what? I think it was with my parents. I think it was with my mom or something like that. We were watching some movie, and I was just like, "Well, it's Zelda on the big screen." What? It was just like mind blowing that you could see this like giant cinematic commercial in a movie theater.
Yeah,
Nobody had ever done that before.
Nintendo designed that to sell N64s because it wasn't doing nearly as well as the PlayStation was at that point. And I think it succeeded on some level. I mean, you yourself said that you bought the N64 just for it.
Yeah.
I got it launch week like Todd did. Fortunately, I was able to get a copy of Mario 64 along with it, so I did have something to play. But again, not being a Zelda fan, didn't really care.
Have you gone back and played it?
Yeah, so that's when I got like 25. I think I got through to the point where Link grows up.
Okay.
Play a little bit past that, and then something shiny comes along, and I go, ooh, a piece of candy, and totally forget about it.
Oh,
So,
man. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm always embarrassed to admit that this is one of those Zeldas that I've never actually completed. I've played it, and I played through probably most of it, but I never actually got to the end and finished the game. And I know it's held as one of the biggest or most popular, and for many people their favorite iteration of the series. But I don't know. I don't remember why I stopped playing it when I eventually got it. But I did, and I never actually finished it.
There's just so many memorable moments in this game, in Ocarina. I mean, and especially some of the items that you get, like the iron boots, the wing boots where you can like go across. The Shadow Temple was really memorable for me. Of course, the Water Temple that everyone loves. This is the reason why people hate the Water Temple, and I think part of it is just because it's a very confusing layout.
That might have been actually where I stopped playing the game.
That probably was, because that was, for me, that and what was the monster that you found Rudo in, Princess Rudo? Jabu Jabu?
Yeah.
Yeah. When going inside Jabu Jabu's belly, forget it, man. I got so lost. I was so confused on what to do. Luckily, at that point, that's when I started getting the guides, like right around Link to the Past onwards. So every Zelda game, even when I just bought Hyrule Warriors, always get the guide.
Actually, I actually just picked up the 3DS remake. Well, not just, but I picked up the 3DS remake of it, thinking to myself, I will finally finish this game.
Right.
And I got to that level in Jabba Jabba's stomach, and I'm going, I have no idea where to go.
No, it's very confusing.
And I'm trying to do it old school, you know? I'm trying to like not use the internet,
Yeah.
not use fax or anything like that. Yeah. And I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So this is the Lost Woods theme from Ocarina of Time, which is a very jaunty tune.
Yeah.
It was actually my ringtone for a long time. on my cell phone.
It's a very happy-go-lucky
It's
song.
the first place where you meet Skull Kid, right? Is that he's kind of
Well, you do meet Skull Kid in there, yeah. But, yeah. I mean, it's just you meet all the Kokiri,
Yeah.
and it kind of gave, like, a different look on where Link came from. I didn't really care. I didn't really appreciate it that much. I was, like, kind of like, all right, whatever. Just let me get a sword and let me kill stuff. So
whatever, epic history, no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. NBD, you know. All right, so yeah, this is Lost Woods from Ocarina of Time by Koji Kondo.
Enjoy. Welcome back. That was Ikana's Ancient Castle from Majora's Mask. And that probably was the freakiest Legend of Zelda game that's ever come out.
I agree. I got this game as a pack-in deal for Nintendo Power. So I was a huge Nintendo Power subscriber and fan. I mean, like when I was like 6 or 7, my parents would be like, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I'd be like, "I want to be an editor in Nintendo Power." And sadly, I did go and get the journalism degree, and that was still my goal even up until college, and then Nintendo Power closed their doors afterwards. I did apply for Nintendo, actually. I did apply for a position for their localization team, actually. And this is one of my proudest moments as a journalism major, because I did get feedback, and they were basically like, they didn't tell me I didn't get the job, but what they did tell me is that they had closed the position. So to me, that was it was like a twisted success because I was like, yes, I would have been considered for this position had they not closed the position.
So it's not a no.
It's not exactly. I was like, it's not a no. So, but Majora's Mask, yeah, so Nintendo Power, they did this thing where they would do a subscription giveaway, and basically if you signed up for a 2-year subscription, they would give you a copy of Majora's Mask, and I think the player's guide as well. You would get both. So I got the full-on collector's edition with the hologram cover or whatever, and...
There was a point where my subscription extended far beyond... 1 year, because anytime there was one of those deals, even if I had a subscription reaching out months, I would say I'm signing up so I can get. So I have both the Legend of Zelda, the one with the demo version of Wind Waker, and I have the one that is Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
The Master Quest one.
Yeah,
I have that too. Yeah.
I have both of those because I just kept signing up for these things so that I would get those cool items.
Nintendo was really cool about making Zelda really special for collectors and gamers, even up until this Hyrule Warriors special edition, limited edition that came out.
It was really their gateway for the hardcore gamer to get into their platform.
Like the gold cartridge. It was all about the gold cartridge back in the day. I mean, Zelda 2, Zelda 1. I was always shocked that the third Zelda, Link to the Past, never got any kind of special collector's edition thing, but all the other Zeldas, for the most part, in most cases, did. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Majora's Mask. This is a weird, freaky game. What was your experience with it, Todd?
I don't have any. I didn't play it.
You didn't play it?
I never even had the game until recently. I picked it up from a retro game store for $20.
Cool.
Was there different editions of the cartridge? Because I got the one that's gold colored with the hologram. Is there ones that are?
That was the one that a lot of people got. That was the first print, and then they came out with another one that was gold with just the regular thing on it. And the hologram sticker is just like a sticker. It's not even like anything crazy or special. And then there was the incredibly rare gray card. I think it was either a not for resale sort of thing, or it was one of those things that it just didn't come out to the public or something like that, or it was in such limited
super
quantities.
Super rare, not just
It's
released.
one of the most expensive N64 carts that exists to this day.
Interesting. Huh?
Yeah. And there's an international version, I think, that's also super rare that came with a shirt and a poster or something like that. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with it, but I know that there's a couple editions of Majora's Mask that were super rare and hard
Strange
to find.
when that happens. There's examples on NES where differently colored, like the gold original Zelda cartridge or something like that, edition of a game is so common that a re-release that came out later on a regular boring gray cartridge is actually rare now.
Yeah.
Because it was towards the end of the system or cartridge's print life, and they just didn't make that many.
Yeah. No, the NES version of Zelda, the first game, had the gold cart as the one that everybody had, and there was a second print. There was a super limited run that was a gray cart, and that one is actually going for more than the gold one. It's strange.
I find it hilarious when I look on Craigslist and people are selling the gold Zelda cartridge for $50.
Woo!
It's
Super
you don't have anything
rare.
special there.
So yeah, Majora's Mask was a game that took place, if I recall, in the same time frame as Ocarina, but it's basically a sequel. So you return from, you go back to being a kid, and you're going through the Lost Woods, going back home to the Kokiri village or whatever, and you run into this dude, the Skull Kid or whatever, and he has this mask, and then the moon is basically coming down towards the sky to basically kill everyone, and the moon has this devastatingly creepy face, and everything in that game is creepy. The masked salesman that you meet in the beginning, where he's just normally a happy guy, and he's just super creepy. So this was kind of a turn for the going back to the whole black sheep, because I remember people were Majora's Mask got great ratings, everybody loved it. As far as Zelda fans, but there were a lot of traditional people that were really disappointed in this being the sequel to Ocarina.
Yeah, well, the fact that there's a time limit on it too makes it because people love to just take their time, go through, explore every single crevice, just get a good feel for everything that the game has to offer, and when you feel rushed through a game to get through it before this gigantic freaky-faced moon crashes down on you, it's that's the kind of game I don't like. I'm gonna take my time, enjoy the storyline, do everything I need to do at my own pace kind of guy. And this being rushed through it, I just kind of gave me the willies. I don't know. It just didn't feel like a Zelda game.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different, and I really enjoyed the time mechanic because it gave a sense of urgency to beat the game, but you never really ran out of time because you could always roll the time back. So you could always play the Song of Time or whatever, and you would go back to the beginning of the very first day, and you always got like a mention very similar to like Castlevania 2, going back to that. Day 1, Day 2.
Yeah.
And you would always get these reminders, but yeah, no, I agree with you. It's definitely different. It feels different, very similar to Adventure of Link.
I've heard mumblings that Nintendo is working on a remake for the 3DS of this too.
Would be
Yeah.
cool.
And if that comes out, I may pick it up.
Yeah, I'll
and
probably
actually
pick it
play
up. I mean, hey, I'm a sucker for anything 3D. I think that the 3D mechanic is really cool in most cases.
I can imagine that vision of this gigantic face coming down on the world in 3D on the 3DS would be pretty dramatic. So that would be fun to watch.
So after Majora's Mask came out, there was a bit of a lull. They came out with Oracle of Ages and Seasons, which was actually developed by Capcom. So Capcom joined up with Nintendo, and very similar to what they just did recently with Hyrule Warriors and Tecmo, and came out with these 2 games. Originally they were supposed to be 3 games, but they ended up creating 2 games. And so there was Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. I've played Ages, I owned Seasons previously, and they are completely different games, but they do link up in a lot of different ways. So it's really cool, really different and unique ideas in that. After that, they came out with Link to the Past, the Four Swords game, which is basically, it took the art style of Link to the Past, kind of like updated it, make it a little more colorful, a little more kiddie colors.
Yeah, much more pastel.
Yeah. So they introduced a villain for the first time that wasn't Ganon, actually.
Bowser?
Yeah, Bowser. Well, actually, Oracle of Ages and Seasons had different villains, too. Most of the games that came out after the first Zelda had different villains, but it usually ended up being all about Link versus Ganon in the end.
Of course.
Right.
It's just like Mega Man.
Yeah.
You know?
Dr. Wily.
Dr. Wily.
Yeah.
It's always Dr. Wily.
Yeah, but like, Ganon wouldn't wear like a fake beard and be like, I'm a completely different
Yeah, that's
person, So after Link to the Past Four Swords, Wind Waker came out, but leading up to Wind Waker, there was the GameCube launch, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Space World 2000 demo. Do you guys remember this? How pumped you were?
Yeah, it looked so good. It was very realistic. This was basically a tech demo for GameCube technology. So Nintendo had a big press conference about their upcoming stuff, and it was this huge cinematic piece that they had. It was Link versus Ganon?
It was
Ganon,
Link
right?
versus Ganon, yeah.
Yeah.
And it took place in the same art style as Ocarina.
Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and it just looked
cool.
phenomenal.
Oh, man.
And then, so they kind of got quiet about Zelda for a while, and then they released inklings about Wind Waker here and there, and when they finally released the art, it was this cel-shaded, cartoony, very kind of like almost Animal Crossing style artwork.
They even called him Toon Link in Smash Brothers. I mean,
yeah, and so people were like, what happened to Space World 2000? Everybody
People
thought they
went
were going to be getting a
nuts.
hugely realistic version of the Zelda world, and they just did a complete 180. And
this was the first time where a group of people could gather on the internet too and complain about
the forums
stuff.
were alight.
Forums
with fervor.
lit up. I remember being on the IGN forums and people were talking about Wind Waker and they were so angry about the graphical style. Personally, I didn't really care about the graphical style. I got the game at launch. I was just like, it's a Zelda game. And I actually thought it was very good. And I thought that it was able to convey a lot more emotion. Like when you leave the town and basically your grandmother is there and the whole plot of the game is your sister gets kidnapped by this, what is it, like some giant bird or something like that comes down, grabs your sister because they're looking for Zelda.
I heard that bird is the word.
Yeah?
Yes. Just so you know.
Are you kicking him off the podcast?
I'm trying. Todd, we're trying to get you on as full host.
I'm ready. As soon as you can get rid of the dead weight around here.
I love you guys. You're my best friends.
So, with Wind Waker, you're basically rescuing your sister. That's the whole plot of the game. But the part that really frustrated me was the sailing. I hated sailing. And I would literally go, make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, come back, eat the sandwich, no joke, and then just arrive.
Let's talk about composers for a bit. So, Koji Kondo did the majority of the work for Majora's Mask, but he also worked with Toru Minegishi, who also worked on Wind Waker. So he started off with Pokemon Stadium in 1999. Majora's Mask was one of his first games, but he went on to do Animal Crossing, Super Mario Sunshine, Mario Golf, Pinball Land, so a lot of the Mushroom Kingdom-oriented games he worked on. Wind Waker's lead composer was Kenta Nagata, who by this point was making quite a name for himself at Nintendo, because he originally started off with Mario Kart 64, which is a really loved soundtrack. People really enjoy, especially that Rainbow Road theme. It just seems
It's where you go, man.
It's where you go when you die. So, Nagata is still working with Nintendo to this day. He went on to do Mario Kart, Double Dash, the DS version of Mario 64, a couple more Zelda games like Crossbow Training and The Phantom Hourglass. He did Mario Kart 7 as the sound director, but then he composed Mario Kart 8.
What are your thoughts on Wind Waker, Todd?
This is my second favorite Zelda game.
Yeah?
Yeah, I loved
Your
this
first
game.
your first favorite Zelda game is all the other ones?
All the other ones, no. First favorite, Link to the Past, obviously. We talked about that before, but this quickly became among my favorites when I started playing it. I too got caught up in the anger and the resentment over the new art style after seeing the more lifelike, I guess you could say, art style. But then once I started playing it, I realized that I actually like the cartoony style Links.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got familiar with it.
Than
and
the Ocarina time. More, it made me realize that I liked that cartoony, colorful world better. And so I really enjoyed this game, including the sailing. I actually, when this game came out, it was right around the time I started dating my now wife, and she plays video games too. So we literally locked ourselves in her apartment, and I played Wind Waker just every day. And I took a piece of legal paper and I drew out the grid of the ocean.
You did old
school. I went to every single square of the grid, drew a little representation of what kind of island was there, what I might need to come back and figure out what's on that island to get.
Cool. Yeah.
Made little notes about everything. I still have it. It's folded up in my Wind Waker case. And I just had a blast with this game. I spent untold hours on it, and I did everything there is to do, and I loved it.
This one was one that I really didn't care about at all. However, I did care about Twilight Princess, which we'll go into after this. So let's give a listen to the ocean theme. So this one's by Kenta Nagata, Hajime Wakai, Toru Minegishi, and Koji Kondo. Let's take a listen. We all remember our first time playing The Legend of Zelda on the NES. And we all remember that awesome feeling we had when the old man gave us our first sword. Now you can experience that feeling every day, all the time. You can't live without our revolutionary new product, Take This. Imagine this. You're cutting the grass. It's hot.
Man, it's hot!
You're feeling weak.
Ugh, I feel weak.
Out of nowhere, an old man appears.
It's dangerous to mow alone. Take this.
A sports drink. Just what I needed. Thanks, Take This.
Now imagine this. You're on a motorboat.
Sweet.
The motor fails.
Not sweet.
You're stuck in the water. What do? Suddenly, an old man appears.
It's dangerous to row alone. Take this.
A pair of oars. You rock, old man. Can you help me paddle back to shore?
Nope.
Take This is a subscription-based service that sends the old man of Hyrule to you whenever you're in a jam. Only 99 rupees per lunar cycle. Act fast and we'll throw in a bonus fairy alarm clock. Order now.
Welcome back. That was Twilight Princess. Hidden Village was the name of the track. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and talk about what games came right before the lead up to Twilight Princess.
Yeah, so between Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, there was Four Swords Adventures and Minish Cap, which were both portable titles.
Right.
Todd, you got some experience with Minish Cap, correct?
Yeah, this is a great GBA title. It kind of models itself after your Link to the Past. It sort of has the same look and feel. It's a great Zelda game. I'm actually a little surprised we don't have any tracks for it. It's unfortunate, but it's a great game.
Yeah, the nice thing about being a podcast is that we can always play more titles in the future.
Zelda 2.
Yeah, there are a bunch
We'll
of
do a
obvious
second.
Zelda games that we're going to be missing, kind of like we did with Contra. We weren't able to fit every single title in, but we'll play them in the future, I promise.
Yeah. I mean, this is more of an overview of the Zelda games, so hey, let's pick a bunch of tracks.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't want to take up the whole cast just talking about it, but if anybody hasn't played Minish Cap, you should definitely pick it up. Great game, great soundtrack, and that's all I have to say about that.
Right on. So after Minish Cap was Twilight Princess,
Yeah.
which was one of the launch titles for the Wii.
Yeah.
And if Todd remembers correctly, when we waited outside Target for an entire night in like
November. It was like
sub
November.
20 degree
Ooh,
Freezing
weather.
cold, yeah.
Yeah, we got corralled into Target shortly before they opened and picked up our brand new Wiis. And Twilight Princess was one of the games that I picked up.
Same here, and I spent every day playing it. You know, it was, I think that was, that and what was the other big Wii release? Well,
Wii Sports.
Wii Sports.
Yeah.
So it was Wii Sports and Twilight Princess that we played. I played.
Right, because sports was a pack-in, so...
Right. So anytime you had friends over or whatever, you were almost certainly bowling. Even still to this day, occasionally we pull out Wii Sports and
Yeah,
but
it's a fun game.
Twilight Princess. You guys know it came out also for the GameCube, but nobody bought it.
Yeah. Now it's expensive.
Now it's expensive, which I was just telling you gents that I was thinking when it was available that I should pick up a copy for collectability's sake alone, and I should have, because now it's worth like $100 open.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. No, I picked up, so you guys waited in the cold. I didn't wait at all. Actually, there was a shortage of Wiis, and you just couldn't get one.
For like a year.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I graduated from college back in 2007. My mom got me a Wii as kind of like a partial like graduation gift, so to speak. So I picked up that, and I picked up Twilight Princess. That was the first game I got for the Wii. And I didn't get very far in this. I always said that I wanted to go back and beat it. I love the art style. I love the gameplay. I mean, it's all really good stuff. The Zelda games went from being a pick up and play sort of like, I'm going to drop you into nothing, figure stuff out, and figure out how to play on your own, to an 1.5 to 2 hour tutorial on how to play the game. And that kills me. Don't need to know that.
So how much time was there between the launch of the Wii and when you got Twilight Princess?
I got it, so the Wii came out in November, right, of 2006. So I picked up the Wii in April or May,
So,
2007.
okay. See, I can kind of explain why, or see why you might have been a little more annoyed with the tutorials than like Todd and I, because Todd and I obviously launched a console, brand new Wiimotes. We have no idea what you're doing with this wand in your hand, so to speak.
That's what she said.
So that tutorial was actually pretty helpful because it really got us acclimated with how to use the nunchuck and the Wiimote and what the buttons were. I didn't see that tutorial as so much of a hindrance and a delay in getting into the game. I saw it as more as, this is how you're going to use these controls for action titles going on into the future. So I can understand why, and especially like moving forward, like in Skyward Sword, like the tutorial, come on. I mean, it's at the end of the Wii's life. Like, everybody knows how to use those controls by now. But with Twilight Princess, it was a brand new control scheme. And I kind of feel like it was necessary.
Well, Zelda games have always had that, not always, but really, at least since Ocarina of Time, have had that sort of obnoxious, just over-explaining the rules of the game or how things are done. Everybody's had the experience of jamming A while the owl came down and is explaining, you're in the world
blah, blah,
and
blah.
you can walk by doing a thing, and do you want me to repeat this? The default is yes, and you're just hitting
And
A.
you're
and
accidentally
then,
hitting
okay,
it.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
say it again.
Yeah.
You're in the world, and everybody's going, ah.
Like, I wish there was an option, and they should really make this in future Zelda games, where they're like, do you want the tutorial, yes or no?
Or do you just want to hear about the new stuff?
Basics. Yeah, just like
Skip the basics. This is what's new in the Zelda universe.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Nintendo's also been doing this thing lately where if you fail enough in a game, it'll pop up and say, do you want us to show you how to not fail anymore?
Yeah.
And as a guy who's been playing Nintendo games for 30 years now, but
Don't hold my hand.
yeah, I don't want that. I want to continue failing until I beat it. And don't even give me the option. Like, give me an option on the main menu. Like, have that for newer players.
Yeah, experienced gamer, beginner gamer. Right,
Right,
at
but
the main
have
menu.
the option to even turn that.
There's pros and cons to both, because there are going to be new people that are playing the game, and then there's also going to be very experienced people that are playing the game. So you got to strike that balance between showing people how to play the game and making sure that the new people enjoy it, but also not pissing off the experienced people with tutorials that are redundant. Let's talk about actually Twilight Princess, the game, a little bit. So this takes place hundreds of years after a lot of the other Zelda games do. So it's got kind of a weirdly, almost futuristic technology look.
It's very dark.
To it. It's a very dark, probably the darkest of the games.
Yeah, I agree.
Which, Majora's Mask was pretty dark too, but that was dark in a creepy way. This is dark in kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of way, almost. And, Link discovers that he can turn into a wolf. And you're like, what? What is this? It's
the
bizarre.
gimmick of the game.
It's the gimmick of the game, but it was a pretty cool gimmick. This is one of the few Zelda games that I actually beat. My wife actually played most of it, and so we got the game. I started playing it on launch day, and it took about a month to beat, because I remember it was Christmas Day, Christmas morning. I was supposed to, pack up the family. My first kid was super tiny at that point. We had to go to my parents' house to open up, like, the rest of our Christmas gifts, and I was at freaking Ganon, and I'm trying to beat him. And I don't want to, any spoilers or whatever, but you got to be very particular with how you beat them, and it was super frustrating. And I actually ended up late to my Christmas family gathering because I just had to beat this game. And then there's that huge ending that you got to look at too. So yeah, but I was happy. It made my Christmas.
This was a great game. I really enjoyed it. It does have those adult Link graphics that I had mentioned that I liked.
It's kind of like Space World 2000 finally came home.
Finally, yeah, they finally sort of got that right. And then
I think they just had such a backlash from fans, graphically wise. Like,
they must have decided to.
They
just
were like,
move
we have to
forward
do
with
it. Yeah.
I didn't particularly appreciate the motion controls, and I think a lot of people tired of the Wiimote quickly. That's why after a few years, the Wii just kind of died, and never really continued on that dominance that it had when it first came out.
Yeah.
But thankfully, the motion controls in Twilight Princess were very simplified. You really just kind of flicked the remote, and that counted as a sword strike. They got really fine-grained with it in Skyward Sword, which I actually didn't really get much into Skyward Sword at all for that exact reason. I just couldn't get the motion down right to make Link do what I wanted him to do. So as much as I liked the game, I just couldn't play it really, and there's no option to not use that.
As far as the track goes, this track was from the Hidden Village, It's a very spaghetti western style track.
It's very much like the Gerudo Village, like from Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. And it also kind of like reminds me a little bit of the X-Files, where it's kind of spooky and it's got that high whistling, like the X-Files theme song. So I really enjoyed this one. Yeah, really kind of represented that feel that Twilight Princess had to it. So we're going to jump a little bit ahead in time. After Twilight Princess came Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks. Then Ocarina of Time 3D came out, which was a 3DS remake of the Ocarina of Time. An anniversary version of the Four Swords game. Then Skyward Sword came out, which none of us really have too much experience with. And then the Wind Waker HD version, which came out on the Wii U, which was essentially an HD, obviously, remake of the Wind Waker game on the Wii U, which had a few extra things added to it, and the graphics were beefed up a little bit.
I mean, and of course we're missing games too. I mean, going further back, like right after Link to the Past, of course, like the BS Satellite View or whatever, the Super Nintendo
The
thing.
Satellaview games.
Yeah, the Satellaview that only came out in Japan. I mean, we're missing some games here and there, but we're trying to cover the basis of the series, so that way you guys can get an overview of, hey, here's these games.
Yeah, I actually considered using one of those BS Satellaview games as a track for this, but it's
too obscure.
They're not. Well, come on, it's with me and obscure hand in hand, but the tracks for that game are more like direct translations of the NES music using Super Nintendo sound fonts, so it didn't really enhance the music at all as much as I wanted it to be able to play on the podcast.
Might have been leftover stuff from Zelda 3, actually, because originally Zelda Link to the Past was Zelda 3 on the NES, and then they moved development over to the Super Nintendo when they saw that the system was coming out.
It's possible.
Could be.
It also might have been that they didn't want to make very complex music because the games were being downloaded from, essentially a satellite internet, and they wanted to keep the file size small. But anyways, we're going into the latest 3DS release for Legend of Zelda, which is Link Between Worlds. This one was composed by Ryu Nagamatsu. And this one is called Hyrule Hotfoot. Now, Mike, I believe you've got the most experience with this game. Todd, did you play it at all?
Yeah, I've been playing it. I have it. Great game. If you like Link to the Past, it's obviously along that same idea. I'm finding this game to be really easy. Like, I'm just kind of floating through all the bosses. Are you having the same experience?
No, actually, I would say it's pretty difficult.
Mike's doing something wrong.
Yeah, I know. No, I really like this game mechanic that they've introduced. So obviously, it takes place in the world of A Link to the Past. This was definitely designed for the Link to the Past fans, since that's one of the most vocal fan bases, I would say, of the Zelda, other than Ocarina.
Even looking at the game, you're like, oh, that's Link to the Past.
Right. I mean, it has the exact same map for the most part from Link to the Past. So it was very easy to traverse the maps and go to where you think that the dungeons are, because if you know that game inside and out, like a lot of us do, it's ingrained in your mind. Okay, I gotta go to the Eastern Palace. Okay, so I gotta go here, go there.
Door everywhere.
Right. But I really enjoyed it. I find that I don't die as much, so I'll agree with you there that it's easier than in that sense. I would say that with this game, it's so easy to collect like the items, because you're saving up rubies. You're getting rubies by the truckload, and you're able to just blow them on getting everything all at once, and then you just don't die because you're so powerful.
Right, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I was able to go to the shop, and as soon as it opened up to where you can actually purchase the items, I bought almost all of them right there.
Yeah.
I think there was maybe 2 that I couldn't afford, and then I just went through one more dungeon, and boom, that was it.
Yeah. In Link to the Past, the levels are more on one plane, and there's like secondary levels. You can go upstairs or downstairs or whatever. But I get the sense that you kind of know where you're going a little bit more. Maybe I got nostalgia glasses on too much, but it's definitely more, I would say, tailored to the 3D gimmick that they're putting in, and I love it. It's great.
This was composed by Ryo Nagamatsu, and so he originally started off on Wii Play. That was his first title. He went on to do a little bit for Mario Kart Wii. He composed a significant portion of the soundtrack for New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And then he probably is the most popular or most famous for doing the entire soundtrack for Nintendo Land, which is, I actually really like the music for that game.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, so this is his first true Legend of Zelda soundtrack. I think he did a really fantastic job.
Did a great job.
Yeah, this one called Hyrule Hotfoot has a very energetic, bouncy feel to it, kind of a big departure from our last track. So let's give it a listen.
All right, welcome back. My neck is sore after that song.
Seriously. It's like Natural Killer Cyborg all over again.
Right? I love that song, though. This is from Hyrule Warriors, and that was the boss battle theme from Ocarina of Time. Just completely redone, rebuilt from the ground up, and just awesome, like Dynasty Warrior style electric guitar, and just all around awesome. Totally badass.
Yeah, so the game's only been out for a couple days as of the recording of this podcast.
Yes.
It'll obviously have been out for a little while by the time it's released. So we've only had limited experience with it. We played a little bit last night, and man, it's good.
It's really fun. It's really good, I gotta say. So it is co-op, so you can play co-op. Unfortunately, it's not online co-op, which is kind of a bummer because even though Ed and I live pretty close to one another,
It would be nice to just sit in our respective houses and play against each
that'd
other.
be cool. Or even like if there was 3-player, 4-player, like Todd can join in. We can get a bunch of our friends like late at night and just like, go through the game.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun. But unfortunately, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, I know the Dynasty Warriors series does have online co-op. So hopefully, if the game is successful and a lot of people buy it, they'll make a sequel and they'll add these features in later on. So as far as the game goes, it's a lot like Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah.
Except I think it's a little bit more enhanced. There are a lot of bigger bosses that don't really exist in the Dynasty Warriors realm, along with, different ways to defeat them. Mm-hmm. I think it adds a lot more of that Zelda universe into the Dynasty Warriors realm. And so a lot of people that detract from the Dynasty Warriors games, saying that they're the same over and over and over again, I think they should really give this one a shot, because it does feel a lot like a Zelda game with Dynasty Warriors gameplay. It's not like it was just two things that are mushed together that don't mix together very well.
No, there was a lot of care that was put into this game, and Todd and I were talking during the break about, he was like, well, should I get this? Like, what do you think of it so far? And I'm going to take a clip from one of the reviews that I've read, a little line from that. Somebody said that it makes me feel powerful in a world that I love. And that's 100%
Absolutely.
true. Like, you're playing as Link and you feel more powerful than you've ever felt before. I mean, you're totally just pumped up and totally badass.
It's part of the glory of the Dynasty Warriors series, is that in Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess, you come across like a field of 4 enemies and you're like, crap, this is going to take a lot of work. And you got to individually kind of work on each enemy and figure out which one to get first. And with Hyrule Warriors, you can just run headlong into a field of 200 dudes and just bash through them and send them all like into the air. It's so much fun.
It's cool.
It really makes you feel like you can whip through these guys. And obviously, because you're so powerful, there are so many more enemies on the field. And there's a lot of strategy behind it too, as far as where to go, what to do.
Yeah.
Our buddy Scott from previous episodes and Mike were playing last night some multiplayer, and I was watching them. And you've gotta.
We were doing terrible.
Yeah, you've really got to pay attention to what the people on the field are saying, and where the markers on the maps are directing you towards.
Yeah.
And then you've got to get there, do your job, whether it's find an item or escort something from one side of the map to another. It's a very unique take on the whole hack and slash beat 'em up series. If you're a Dynasty Warriors veteran, you'll find it very easy.
Yeah,
at least in the beginning of the
it.
game, you'll be able to jump into it. If you're brand new to the Dynasty Warriors series, my only advice to you is to just read carefully, follow the directions, and once you're in that mode and you level yourself up and you can kind of slice through guys in previous levels easily, you can go back and kind of explore more. But when you start the game, you really got to follow what they're telling you to do and where to go, and you'll succeed easily.
The biggest problem I had with it was so far the map is super tiny on the gamepad when you're playing multiplayer. So trying to figure out where to go on that map on the little screen is very hard. I mean, a lot of people were complaining about the frame rate. I didn't really notice that much of a drop.
Anything.
Yeah,
it looked good.
It played great on the gamepad and it played great on the screen. So both ways, when we were playing multiplayer, it was fine. I didn't really have any major issues with it. Just that map is so tiny. And it'd be nice if I could blow it up so that maybe half the screen is the map, the other half is like
you can pause it and get a full screen version of the map.
Oh, okay.
So if there's something that it's directing you towards, you can pause it for a second and then look at the map and see those markers.
Yeah.
And then you can also go back through what people had, like all the dialogue in the game. It kind of saves on a roll, so you can go back and see what people have said.
Yeah.
If you didn't miss like you need to go to the southeast and take this keep or whatever, you can go back and find out what they said so you can get there.
You can't play it like a Zelda game though. Like I was definitely playing it like a Zelda game. And so I'm walking around like, oh, there's like, 10 enemies. Oh, I'll kill those 10 enemies. Meanwhile, I've got like Zelda in the like top left corner. She's like, hey,
for help
me, I need help. So I was just like, whatever, man, there's like 10 guys here. I'm gonna kill them all.
After a while, you're just running past the smaller guys to get to where you need to be.
That's literally what's happening is that when you start playing it, if you are a Zelda fan, you're playing it like a Zelda game where you're taking out the enemies one by one or, in multiple groups, not really paying attention to the map. And you really have to get out of that mindset. And the game's really good about doing that. Is within the first like little bit of gameplay that I've played, it's gone from, hey, you're playing the Zelda game to, hey, you're playing a game that is completely different, a different experience in a Zelda game, so you really have to pay attention to the map and to the dialogue, just like Ed said. So, but yeah, no, I thought it was pretty cool. So maybe we'll all give it a go at some point. We'll all sit down and play some Hyrule Warriors.
I've had it on pre-order. Amazon is just dragging their butt on delivering it to my house. So hopefully, when I get it, I'll be blowing through it, and we'll be playing some more tracks from this game. I think because it was written by Masato Koike and Yuki Matsumura, both of whom have worked for Koei in the past, both of whom have scored other Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, Warrior Orochi games. So it's got that Dynasty Warriors sound mixed with compositions of some of the best Zelda games. So you'll find familiar tunes from Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, all in this really awesome rock, hard rock metal format.
Todd, we want to thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me again. It was good to be back.
Always.
It's nice to have somebody who has a little more experience with Zelda games than me. So,
so that's going to close it off. We want to thank everybody for listening and staying tuned to the website. You can check us out at facebook.com/PixelTunes Radio. You can also check us out on PixelTunesRadio.com, where you can post forum in our forum, talk about as far as the comments go, like what you thought of the episode. You'll also be able to start voting on your favorite songs of each podcast. So we would love it if you guys could do that, so that way we know what you liked and we know what you didn't.
Yeah, so on PixelTunesRadio.com, about halfway through, so like 1 week after we post our initial podcast, we're going to put up a poll. Very simple, just click on the song that you enjoy the most, and then that'll help us figure out what you guys like, what you want to hear more of. You can always leave comments on any of our social media. We're going to be, as of this point it's being set up, but I'm sure it will be set up by the time the podcast is released. We'll be the newest members of the Retro Junkies Network. So you can visit them at www.theretrojunkies.com. So all one word, no punctuation, theretrojunkies.com. And we'll have our own sub-forum there. So we're going to have all of our guests and us. We're going to be members of that forum, so you guys can come in, interact with us, tell us what you like about the shows, give us suggestions for new stuff. We'll have new content posted on Facebook, on Twitter, on the forums. We're going to make this super, super awesome. So
yeah, we're doing this all for you guys because we want to build a community around the show. We want to know what you guys think, so definitely feel free to leave us comments, questions, concerns, and spread the word. Definitely get the word out about PixelTunes Radio, because you know what? We're only in episode 19 and we got a million more to go.
Exactly.
So.
For October, we've got some awesome stuff lined up. Because of Halloween, we're going to lead off with a Castlevania episode. And then right before Halloween, we're going to release a episode all about horror and spooky and survival horror games.
Yes.
So I'm really looking forward to October.
Gonna be great. I love October, love the fall and the Halloween season. So this is going to be great. Really excited. So again, thanks for listening, and subscribe to us on iTunes as well.
Peace out, bronies. Jabroni. Peace out, jabronis.